everything in this world, God is in. Okay, so in a sense, there was something in God's order that allowed that person not to step in front of that car, but that is, or whatever, out in the middle of the road. Now, I don't want to be so crass, but I mean, God cares more about what our choices are and getting us into a place where we are going to be eternally happy than, for instance, what kind of breakfast we have in the morning, or who we speak to,
or whether we get hit by a car.
Well, that's where I didn't want to go because it sounds so harsh. But yeah, I mean, he grieves with us. I can say, I think that's true. I mean, thinking of him at least in that human of terms, doesn't want us to suffer, to go through anything bad, hurtful, and wrong. But the ultimate goal of providence is not to stop us from hurting ourselves or getting hurt or stepping out of order. Because again, everything would be a joke. Our freedom and love and coming to him is all it's all about. Now, let me just say one thing, another way to, I remember, and I probably have twisted the story around a little bit some way or another since, but way back when planes used to crash a lot more, back in the 70s and things like that, that there was a plane that crashed, and I'm not sure if there were few survivors or just one, but it was very few survivors. And they were interviewing this woman, I forget how many were killed. I mean, 75, 100 people were killed. They interviewed this woman that was a survivor, and she said, "Oh yeah, I talked all about it." She goes, "Well, there's one thing I know now. There is a God." And I'm like, what about the 70 whatever other people that died? What about them? And I think that often is where we think about, God is right into, we don't get the big picture of what God is and how God works in this world.
So it can't work that way, because if God is saving that one lady, then he's also
allowing or
by
killing
neglect,
the other one. Right.
Even if by neglect, just letting the other, it seems,
if that was his goal,
arbitrary.
Right.
And so it can't work arbitrary.
Right.
If he is a God of love and mercy.
Right.
So it's got to have some kind of rules to it.
Exactly. And in that way, you can say everything has a reason in it. We could get into, I don't like that statement, like everything has a reason. But in the sense that God has built the potential of everything has a reason, in the sense of there is potential in everything for us to grow. There's potential in everything for us to come closer to God, but there's also the potential not to.
So there's that delicate balance that God didn't cause the bad thing to happen, but he lets it happen, and at the same time tries to lead us to see that good can come out of it.
Absolutely. I mean,
if we let it.
There's something built into his entire, universe that not only tries, it's there for us.
Right.
That power to bring us back. Now, I'm not going to tell somebody that in the middle of a tragedy, oh, by the way, God's got some plan or whatever. That's not, they need to be in.
And yet, people do that. That's the crazy thing.
Well, they're making me squirm in my chair about that one. Oh,
yes.
no. Oh, I know that it's God's will. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, even someone that says, well, I believe there's a reason for everything. And I have to confess, in my book, Guardian Angel Diary, I actually say that, But I've really come to see that in the sense that never tell somebody in a tragedy. And I had somebody do this to me in a very, very hard tragedy that I went through. Someone said to me, well, I guess there's a reason for everything, isn't there? And I was kind of like, thank you very much. I mean, you just said something, that God did something terrible, in my life. And I wasn't appreciative of it. I didn't say anything, but because that implies that God did it, I mean, that, I whatever it is, I, hurt that family tremendously, so I could teach them something about life or whatever. No. But I do believe in the sense of in everything that happens, even in the most harmful, things that happen, God is so powerful that he can make good come out of it. And we would look back and go, and I can see this, look back and go, oh, that's the reason it happened. But in that sense, I mean, I can see even in the worst thing possible that God has already pre-planned how good can come out of anything. So it really helps me to see the power of God. But again, people in tragedy, I think they just need to know you're there for them and that there is a God and that he loves you and, that kind of thing, rather than, there's going to work out in the long run or something like that.
I think that's part of what makes this conversation so difficult for me compared to some of our others, is because I'm mindful that there are going to be people who may watch or listen to this who are actually going through a tragedy right now.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Or worse, have actually had that level of, I think some people even call it like spiritual abuse, where, or religious abuse, where they're going through a tough time and someone says the absolute worst thing to them. You know, it's when someone says, well, I used to be religious, but then, you know, my daughter got cancer and people said, oh, God let her, or God wanted her to get cancer. And so, you know what? I'm out. Well, I would be out too. if that's what believing in God was.
I don't believe in God. I said, yeah, I don't believe in that God.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, so just even for those who are listening and thinking about them, like, no, like God does not will the bad thing to happen to your loved ones or to you. That is not in his plan. And yet he still allows it to happen. And I think that is the tragedy of the world in one sense, that we do actually live in a world populated by people who are really selfish. I know this because if I'm honest with myself, I have that in me. And so some of the pain and suffering in the world is caused by the fact that there's a whole lot of people in it who cause a whole lot of pain and suffering.
Everybody's free.
Right. And so that's really hard.
Yeah. And we already said it, but it's not like God wound up the world and in our freedom said, okay, go. He is present everywhere. And so, I mean, and so in those times of trouble or harm, we may not feel God, and we may come into some doubts. But you know, one of the things that gives me comfort is to know that you know the love of the universe is still there, you know, for me. The hand of God is still here. It's just that the hand of God didn't just slap me in the face.
Right.
It's here to lift me up and to hold me even in those times of trouble. And I put that out to people who are suffering. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, I've come to places in my life where I really felt like, well, where is God? And you know, I think we all have. To a degree, if something really bad has happened or things like that. But keeping open at some level, you know, to I don't understand. You know, I'm going to keep open. That's saved me 100 times. You know, just people give up. People do give up, and the problem for me, you know, looking at giving up, you know, that means shutting down, blocking out, stopping life, God from giving me those opportunities to find happiness and joy again in my life. So the whole key is to stay open, and it'll come back.
Yeah, I think one of the key rules of divine providence or laws of spiritual physics for me is the idea that the Lord created people, and therefore me, to be not just a receiver of his love, but a vessel, something that sends his love out to the world through me. And that the purpose of my creation isn't to just get blessed or not, or glorify God, but to actually bring God's love into reality. So that when I see tragedy, if I listen, I can hear God calling, like act, love,
Yes.
do something, reach out. And at the same time, if something happens to me, it's the same thing. Like you were saying, people give up or people close down, people shut down and they shut God out. Similarly, in tragedy, it's really tempting to shut people out. I'm reminded of the classic joke where somebody's up on top of a roof and they're praying to God during a flood and the flood's going on. And he says, oh, God, save me. And a guy with a boat comes by and he's like, hey, do you want to get on the boat? No. God's got it. I keep praying and the guy with the boat leaves. God, please save me. A guy with a helicopter comes by and says, well, we've got a rope. No, I've got it. God's got me. And the helicopter flies off. And then the floods come and he dies. And he's like, God didn't save me. And God says, I tried. I sent you the helicopter. I sent you the boat. I'm sending all these people. Because that's also how the Lord's going to love people, is through people.
Absolutely.